Alright, so welcome back everybody. So for this video, I'm going to try to teach you guys how to play Gold Nugget by Two Tomatoes. Now, there isn't very much information on this game. In fact, I had a hard time learning this game because you pretty much need to play with other people in order to really get a feel for this game, because it's nearly impossible to do it by yourself. Sure, you can read the rule book and understand the rules before you play, but there's definitely a lot of concepts that you won't really feel or understand until you play the game. So this will definitely be a little bit messy as far as explaining how to play, and there might be things I'm gonna miss because the reason why that is I'll show you. So this game comes with these things, coverings for your eyes. And so there'll be many times in the game where you need to close your eyes, and things are going to happen when your eyes are closed. Things you don't know, things you don't see that are happening when your eyes are closed. And so it's very hard to play this game solo. You cannot really play this game solo at all because it's really difficult to know what's going on or to even do things if you have to close your eyes, playing by yourself especially. So this would be difficult to explain, but I will try my best as there really isn't much information out there on this game. So anyways, so the object of the game is you want to have the gold nugget. Now, this is the gold nugget here. Now, there is a gold nugget somewhere on this table here. The game comes with two, but you only play with one. So the only thing I can think of is this is just useful as a reference if you want to teach the game to somebody so they know what to look for as far as what the gold nugget is supposed to look like. So that's what this is. So basically, you need to have the gold nugget in your lair. So right now, this is my lair. I have 2 stones in my lair, okay? And all of the stones are going to have the same side on one side, but some of them will have nothing on each side. So most of the stones will look like this. They'll have nothing on each side of the stone, okay? Only one of the stones is going to have this gold nugget on it, and there's going to be at least a couple, if not a few, of these stones that have these feathers on the other side, okay? These are known as trap feathers, and we'll explain them later. But yes, that's another type of stone you might end up finding. So yes, this is what you're going to need. This needs to be in your den. So this is my den, this is the snake's den, this is the bat's den, and I'm the owl. So this is my den. So if at the very end of the game, if this gold nugget was in my den, I'd win. That's the idea. So, but at the beginning of the game, you don't know where the gold nugget is, but there's going to be things you'll be doing to reveal stones, examine stones, steal stones from other players, so that way, you can get the gold nugget into your lair. Okay. Now, if at the end of the game, if the gold nugget is in the nest here, in the raven's nest, then the raven wins and we all lose. So that's how everyone can lose, but only one person can win if and only if somebody has this in their den. Now, there's going to be a certain amount of rounds. So you'll play a certain amount of rounds based on how many people are playing the game. Okay, and there's certain times of day periods. So each round will have a morning, we'll have an afternoon, we'll have an evening, and have a night. Okay, now during each of these steps, players are going to be asleep. There's going to be at least one player potentially asleep. If you're playing a 3-player game, there might be there's going to be one phase that nobody is asleep. But generally, most of the time, at least one player will be asleep, with some exceptions to that rule. So, and these are randomly given out to each player. So, for instance, this is the morning card. So, for the morning, I would normally be asleep, okay? The snake, it has the evening card. So, during the evening, that player who is the snake would be asleep. And if you're the player that has the bat, and they were given this card, that means they would be asleep during the afternoon. Remember, these are random, so you might be the bat, but you might not have this. And there's several animal cards. So while we're playing with 3, there's like 12 different animals that you could potentially be. If you're not one of these, there's several others. So then there's 4 technical phases of this game, okay? There's the hello phase, which is basically the phase when an animal is going to wake up. When an animal wakes up from sleep, they're going to say, hello, I'm awake, and then, of course, they're going to open their eyes, and when they are waking up from sleep, they will have some cards. All players start with 5 of these leaf cards, okay? And during the wake-up phase, the player that is waking up, they have the option to discard any cards that they don't think they're going to use, and discard them, and draw the same amount from the leaf deck, okay? So that's the idea. That's basically everything you do with the wake-up phase, if there's anybody at all that's waking up. There might not be somebody waking up, so then you just skip it. The first round of the game, nobody is waking up because no one's gone to sleep yet. So you would skip that first phase of the game. The second phase is, I'm going to sleep. That's the second phase of the game, is the player who needs to go to sleep must now go to sleep. So if we're playing in the morning, normally the owl right now would be the one going asleep because he's supposed to. Now, with that said, there are some exceptions, okay, to sleeping. So let's explain those now. First of all, I want to mention that the owl, all these animals have special abilities that they can do. So the owl here, it can, when he sleeps, he can have his eyes open. So the player who has the owl doesn't need to close their eyes when they are sleeping. But that doesn't mean they can do much of anything. Because when you're sleeping, you're not allowed to play cards, okay? When you're sleeping, you can't play cards. So even though I was sleeping and I had my eyes open because I'm the owl, I couldn't play any of these cards during that time of day because I'm sleeping. Other players, they can play cards and do stuff, but I wouldn't be able to, even though I have my eyes open. So that's the idea of that thing. So the snake, when it goes to sleep, and the bat, when it goes to sleep, for instance, they won't be able to play cards, but they also won't be able to see what's going on. They can hear what's going on, and there's going to be things that people need to say out loud, so that way the person who has, or the animal, or the player who has their eyes closed can hear what's going on. They can hear key words like stealing and examining and revealing, so they know what's going on even if they can't see what's going on. That's the idea. Okay, so then, with that said, there is a couple of other things that can disrupt the sleeping phase. So, this is like the first player token, okay? If you get this white feather, if you get this, but you're actually supposed to sleep, then you can actually choose to ignore sleeping. Meaning you don't have to sleep if you have this. So let's say this is the first round of the game. Okay, this is a good example. This is the first round of the game. The game has just started, and I'm the first player, and I'm going first. That means I'm playing multiple cards potentially on my first turn. But I have this, but I'm also supposed to sleep. I can choose not to sleep, or I can choose to sleep. If I choose to sleep, then I have to hand the feather over to the player to my left. Okay? And if for some odd reason they have to sleep, then they can choose to either stay awake or sleep as well. But that's an option. That's something that could potentially happen. If you're playing with 5 people, that could happen potentially, I suppose. But yes, that's the idea. So if I have this, I can basically avert sleeping, and I can play that time of day without having to sleep, which is awesome because now I don't have to worry about falling asleep during the afternoon, the evening, or the night for that round because I got this at an opportune time, okay? So that's kind of the idea on that. Now, that does mean that there's other ways you can potentially not sleep. There's a card called Insomnia. If you get the Insomnia card, you can play it before you go to sleep. Because here's the thing. Normally, you can only play cards, okay, when it's your turn, when you have the white feather, the player who has the white feather, he's the only one that can play cards. And you'll notice I have lots of cards here, but only one has this lightning bolt on it, okay? So the thing about lightning bolt cards is these can be played by other players even before I play cards. So even though on my turn during the meddling phase, I can play all of these cards here, okay? If a player has a lightning bolt on their card, they can play it even before I play anything here if they want to. And the Insomnia card is a lightning bolt card. So if they play it, they can actually play it to avoid sleeping because they have insomnia. So sort of thematic, they have insomnia, so they can't sleep. So they're not going to sleep. That's a card in this game that you could potentially get to avoid sleeping, which is not something you want to do because you want to know what's going on. You want to see stuff going on. You want to see the gold nugget being transferred from one player to another because it was revealed and you know that's the gold nugget for sure. That kind of thing. That's the idea. And so you can play as many of these lightning bolt cards as you want, even if it's not your turn, okay? That means during each of the times of days, there's only one player it's that player's turn for that time of day. But the other players can still play lightning bolt cards, but other players cannot play cards that don't have lightning bolts if it's not their turn. If they do not have this white feather, they could not play this card. They could not play this card. They could not play that card. They could not play that card. They could only play this card if they don't have this. That's the general idea, okay? So then since I have it, I could skip the sleep phase for this part-time a day and move on to the meddling phase, which means now I can play cards. I can now play these cards. I can play as many of them as I want to. But once I'm done playing these and done doing things with these cards, then I need to hand the feather over to the player to my left, and we move the leaf token up to the next time of day. Okay, and then maybe one of them, then the bat would have to go to sleep because he's got the afternoon. But if he had the insomnia card, let's see if he has it. He has the insomnia card. So you see, here's the insomnia. So he could play this before he's supposed to go to sleep. It can be played before sleep. And then you discard your hand, so you have to discard all your cards, and then draw up to 4 cards from the forest deck. This turn, you don't sleep. So that's a brilliant card. That's useful, for sure, in that situation. Then he wouldn't have to worry about falling asleep, and he could see what other players are doing. Okay? So that's the general idea. You play cards on your turn, only one turn per season, only one player is taking a turn per season, but some players can still do stuff. Not only do they have cards that they can still do, but there are players who have powers as well, abilities, that they can do when they're allowed to do them. So this bat here, for instance, he can steal 2 stones. So that icon indicates stones from anywhere with his eyes closed. So if he does this ability, he has to close his eyes before he steals a stone from somewhere. It could be the nest. It depends, of course. Anyway, so every time one of these situations occurs, he can do this ability. So he can do it once between each of his turns. So he can do it once before his next turn. He can do it once every time he sleeps. So if he goes to sleep and he doesn't have that insomnia card, he can steal 1 stone with his eyes closed while he's asleep because that's his ability because he's a bat. And then every time the gold nugget is revealed, he can steal a stone. So if the gold nugget is revealed and he sees it because he's not asleep, then he can steal it. But he has to steal it with his eyes closed. Now, this is something that's really important. When you have stones out, these stones need to stay where they are because you can't just be moving stones around, messing people up. A player could, for instance, reveal that gold nugget that another player has, but then that player, if they want to move the stones around so that way they can't find it again, is easy when they want to steal it, they are not allowed to do that. The stones need to stay in the order that they're placed on the turn that you get them. So when you get stones, you're allowed to place them in any order you want, but then they must stay in that order how you have them, and you cannot move them. So the player who decides to look at one of your stones because they have an ability that lets them, if they're allowed to reveal, if they're allowed to reveal, or if they're allowed to just simply secretly look at the stones, examine, which is called examine, then they must put the stone back exactly in the order that it was left. The only time these stones can be moved is when a card says, take stones from somebody else or take stones from the nest and put it into your den. Then you can move the order around to make space for the new stones that you're taking. That's the only time. And in the beginning of the game, all of these stones will not be in your dens. But as for the setup rules, each player will take one stone at a time and put it into their dens, and they'll do that twice per player. Each player will do it. And so that way everyone starts with 2 stones in their den. But yes, that's what they're going to do. But then they're going to have to put it in a certain order, and then they can't move it until a card says otherwise, or like I said, they are stealing stones and putting them into their den. Stuff like that. That's the general idea. So all these stones kind of need to stay in one place as well. So that's an important rule to mention as well. Okay, and so then there's also a reference guide. So each one of these cards that you get that tells you what time of day that you need to go to sleep at, on the other side, there's an iconography card that tells you what each of the icons means on cards when you're about to do something. So this one is for gold nugget. This one means stone. This one means feather. If you see this on a card, it allows you to recycle the card if you want to. Some cards allow you to recycle them. So, for instance, this card has that in the left corner in the middle here. This one here does not, so it can't be recycled. But this one can. So if I didn't want to use this card for its effect, if I didn't want to beg, I could instead discard this card to steal a stone from anywhere I want, from an opponent's den or from the nest, okay? So that's what that means. I can do that instead. If I don't want to use the card for its effect, I can discard it to steal a stone. So that's what recycle will mean. Now, if you discard cards, like, for instance, at the end of the meddling phase, before you move on to the next phase, if you've used a few of your cards, you're allowed to draw up to your hand limit of 5. Or most likely, though, when you wake up from sleeping and you discard a certain amount of cards to draw a few more, that discarding effect will not affect the recycle, okay? So just so you know that. And then the den icon looks like that. So if there's a card that says steal from a den, reveal a stone from a den, or just has that icon on it, then you know what that means. Leaf cards. Some cards let you steal cards from other players or draw cards from the deck, from the leaf deck. So that's what that icon means. It's got a little leaf on the card. And then this even tells you that lightning bolt on cards means it can be played outside your turn, meaning it can be played when it's not your turn. So that's another reminder for you. So that's the iconography. Okay, so then the game is going to end when the raven, which is on the turn order here, on the round, So when you complete a night, so whenever this leaf ends up here, and then somebody ends their turn and hands the white feather over to another player, they're going to move the leaf token to the morning because it's a new day, and then the raven, whatever it is on the round tracker here, is going to move up 1. So eventually, the raven is going to end up here, and then it's going to be the last day when that happens. And then when the leaf arrives here, it means the raven has arrived, okay? And when the raven has arrived, then one more thing will happen. Each player can secretly choose one card to play on their turn, one of these kinds of cards, okay? They can secretly choose which ones they want to play, and then in turn order, everyone's going to get to activate that one card, okay? And that's the general idea. And then after that is done, and everyone's done that, then whoever has the white feather, they will close their eyes, and they will count to 3, and then one at a time, every player can steal one more stone, in turn order. And then whoever has the gold nugget after that wins, unless it's the raven, obviously. So that's the general idea. Also, there is some differences in cards besides what you can play. while you are allowed to play as many cards as you want on your turn, these are known as basic cards. And this one here and this one here are known as special cards. So that means this lightning bolt, even though I can play it when it's not my turn, if it's a special card like this, it means I can only play this one card when it's not my turn at that instance. I couldn't play if I had multiple lightning bolts with this banner of leaves around the card. I can only use one of these cards per turn, per whoever has the white feather, as an example. So that's the general idea. But if it's your turn and you have the white feather, okay, you can play as many of these that don't have the leaf border around the card as you want. You can play as many of these as you want, but you're only still allowed to play one of these types of cards that have the leaves all the way around the border, okay? So that's the general idea there as well. So I forgot to mention that, but that's another rule to remember of the game. And then, so yeah, like I said, the end of the game is, the end phase, when this is the equation, and you steal all the stones, and then whoever has the gold nugget would be the player who wins. That's the general idea. Now, there is still one other concept. I haven't explained what these black feathers do, okay? So let me explain that. I did show you guys earlier one of these stones here. When you examine, okay? So there's some concepts. Some cards tell you to examine, meaning you secretly examine the stone and then put it back, so no one else saw what you examine, okay? That's a concept. Another concept is reveal. When you reveal a stone, everyone is allowed to see the stone when you reveal it, except for the player who's asleep, unless you're the owl, of course. Then you're going to see it because you're awake, because you're sleeping with your eyes open. But generally, if your eyes are closed, you're not going to see the reveal. But other players will. And so when you reveal a stone that has this feather on it, nothing happens, okay? Nothing negative happens, so you can forget that. But if you examine a stone and it has a feather on it, you must reveal it to everybody, okay? And when that happens, then you must take a feather and add it to your den, okay? So that's what you must do. Now, what do these feathers do? Well, when you get 3 of these feathers, okay, if you have 3 of these feathers, then you must immediately, doesn't matter if you're still going through a card and doing it, or an ability and you're doing it, you must stop what you're doing and you must immediately discard every stone that you have and return it to the nest. And then you can also return these to the nest. You must, obviously. But that's what's going to happen. If you get 3 of these feathers, you're going to end up losing all the stones that you've worked so hard collecting, hopefully, possibly having that gold nugget in that den of yours as well. So that could be a problem. And like I said, there's cards that will give you these as well. So it's not just when you examine a stone that has a leaf on it, it's also when players play cards against you, when you play certain cards and do certain things that are going to cause these feathers to be given to you. That's the general idea, though. That's how that is going to work for the feathers. And then there is one other concept I didn't explain yet. So as you are drawing cards from the leaf deck, eventually you're going to come across a wind card. This is a wind card, okay? So let's reveal it. This one is called Stalking. All receive 1 feather from the nest. So when this is revealed, okay, when this is drawn, well, it's pretty obvious when it's going to be drawn. You must reveal it when it is drawn, and then you must immediately do what it says, okay? But this is not a card that's going to go into your hand, so if you were to draw this, then you simply discard it, and draw another one in its place, so you still get your amount of cards. Now, you're only allowed to have 5 cards at any given time, so if something happens, if there's an effect that gives you tons of cards, at the end of your turn, if you have more than 5 cards, you must discard down to 5 cards in hand. You're never allowed to have more than 5 cards, which means you can't hoard cards. But remember, players can play cards that can also steal cards from you, so you wouldn't want to hoard cards anyways. But that's the general idea of these wind cards. When they show up, you must do them, whatever they say, okay? That's the general idea. So if you already had 2 feathers and then this thing showed up, that could be bad for sure. But that's the general idea of that. And then I think there was one other thing that I wanted to explain. Oh, yes. There is a card. So let me explain this card. This is Escape Plan, okay? So let's see if I can zoom in a bit where the shadow isn't blocking half the card. Okay, so this is another one of those lightning bolt cards, okay? It says you can play this before you sleep. So it says you play this before you sleep. So if you're going to go to sleep at a certain time of day, before you're about to do that, you can play this card, okay? That's when you play it. It says at the start of your next turn, you can reveal 1 stone, and if it's and this icon here on the right means gold nugget, you win the game. Yes, you immediately win the game. That means the game can actually be ended before the game is even over. You can trigger the end of the game before all of the rounds go through. That's what that means. So if you know where the stone is, or if you just get lucky with a reveal, you could potentially win the game. Okay, and there, like I said, you might know where the stone is before this happens. You might know it before you go to sleep where the gold nugget is, and so you go to sleep, and at the start of your next turn, which would be at the start of your next turn, which would be actually when that white feather comes to you. So when you get the white feather, that would be your next turn. So it could be a few turns that pass by. But yeah, you could win the game. So it's risky, but it's possible, I suppose. So just so you know, there's another obviously way to lose the game or win the game. I mean, for someone to win the game, they could have this card, Escape Plan. So that's the general idea of the game. I think I've explained pretty much every concept, at least, to get you started on how to play the game. Obviously, you're going to need to look up all of the abilities on your own for each of these animal powers, because there's a lot of them. I only showed you 3 in the video, but there's 12. It also recommends that for your first game, you should only play with the cards that have a difficulty of 1, which makes sense, because some of these are harder to understand than others. And then, of course, you're just going to have to go through the cards and understand them on your own. There's a lot of them. So, but yeah, I think hopefully this will be, I hope this helps for anyone who's interested in this game. I hope this helps you at least understand most of the concepts of the game, how you win, how the game ends, and that kind of stuff. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys again next time. Bye.